Did you know that a woman signed the Declaration of Independence? Well, we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes on this most different 4th of July.
Maximalist Minibus with Mary and Captain and you. Get on the bus!
On the 4th of July, erupting color will split the sky. The countryside will be ours at night, 'cause we're living in America.
I think it's clear that this year we're going to be seeing less big celebrations like this one and more weird face masks like this. I know it's weird. I tried to order one on Amazon, but I guess I ordered it too late because I couldn't get it in time. So I just tied Captain's little bandana around my own face mask, and it's the best I could do. I wanted to wear something festive. I'm standing in front of the USS Constitution, also called Old Ironsides. This is the oldest vessel in the U.S. Naval Fleet, commissioned in 1797. This ship figures prominently in Boston's annual 4th of July celebration. At least it usually does. Goes out into the harbor and does a big turnaround, and then it returns back to a 21-gun salute. But that is not happening this year. Well, the 21-gun salute is happening, but it's happening on Facebook. This is also the time of year when they get a lot of tourists. You know, they do tons of tours of the ship, but this year the tours are virtual. And that's one of those things that we're supposed to feel really good about, I guess. That, you know, it's one of the glass half full things that we say to keep from feeling like this pandemic totally sucks is, hey, isn't it great that people in Japan can now tour the USS Constitution? Because it's much better that they can tour the USS Constitution virtually than that we can go to fantastic, big, huge fireworks displays. Virtual tours are definitely better. So let's talk about the piece of paper, the Declaration of Independence that started this whole 4th of July thing. You've probably seen photos of the original, which has beautiful handwriting and all the signatures at the bottom, including John Hancock's. And that was probably written out by the Continental Congress clerk, a guy named Timothy Matlack, who was a brewer and happened to have fantastic handwriting. But on the night of July 4th, an Irish printer named John Dunlap was hired to print 200 copies to be sent around the country, including to George Washington, who read it out loud from the steps of New York City Hall, sparking a riot that resulted in the tearing down of the statue of King George III. It would later be melted down to make musket balls. This version has a lot of mistakes in it, but it was a quickie printing, so that's understandable. It also was signed by only 2 people, John Hancock and Charles Thomson, who was the Secretary of the Continental Congress. This was the version that was sent to England, to the king, and that kind of explains why nobody signed it, because they were scared. Congress was moving around a lot at that point, trying to stay ahead of the British Army, so from December 1776 to February 1777, they were meeting in Baltimore, and that's where their paths crossed with the woman who ended up signing the Declaration of Independence, Mary Catherine Goddard. At the time, she was the Baltimore postmaster, but also she was running a newspaper, the Maryland Journal, that her brother, William, had founded. William had just kind of abandoned the paper, which was something he did pretty often. William was kind of what I would call like a serial entrepreneur. You know, he'd start a newspaper in one place, and then he'd get bored, and so he'd turn the running of it over to his mother and his sister. Then he'd move on and start a newspaper somewhere else and do the same thing again. He's been described as brilliantly erratic. When he turned the Maryland paper over to his sister, she was running it under the name of M.K. Goddard because, you know, a woman wasn't supposed to be doing that kind of thing. But she had turned it into a really respectable paper, and she cemented her place as a successful printer. Plus, she was a solid and articulate supporter of independence. So when the Continental Congress came and asked her to print a new edition of the Declaration of Independence, Mary Catherine was elated to find herself with a role in history, especially in independence, which she had been so passionate about. The version she printed was the first to have the names of all the signers printed at the bottom, except for one who it's thought he just hadn't signed it yet at the time this was printed. But she also added her name at the bottom, which is common practice for printers. You know, it's not that unusual. What was unusual, though, is that she dropped the gender-neutral MK in favor of her full name. So, on the document, she put, printed by Mary Catherine Goddard. And that's how she became the only woman to sign the Declaration of Independence. Okay, technically it's not a signature, but none of them are. They're all printed on this version, so she's just as much of a signer as anybody else. Okay, Skoolie Scouts, if you want some more history, check out this video and I'll meet you over there. And meanwhile, be safe, have fun, wear a mask because it's easy, and Americans take care of each other. That's part of being a patriot.